Keep the long-term goal in mind that your job is to unlock the brilliancy in every child. I think it will help us get through the day-to-day hurdles and not get hung up on those challenges that we face, but realize there's an ultimate goal here that's much bigger than us, and it's the life of the child.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Hi, everybody. So this week's episode starts out with a powerhouse of a person. Miss Traci Manuel, also known as Miss Manuel to her students, is a teacher at Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had the fortunate opportunity of getting to know Miss Manuel when she was my son's teacher at Carver Middle School, and she was an incredible individual. I could tell at that time we worked together on a few projects that she really had a heart for helping students and really helping them not only understand the material that she was teaching, but help them understand and navigate things in their lives that they were going through and help guide them in being the best that they could be. And so she really has a heart for helping students. She has a heart for helping teachers. And our conversation was just very inspiring for me. She is one of those people, why I started the podcast. I didn't even know that I was going to interview her. But for you to be able to hear the passion in her voice and have her tell the story from her side, why she went into teaching, her pathway to getting there, and then what she's currently all about, I think is so impactful when you can hear it from the source. So this week, I'm talking to Miss Manuel, and she is actually the Tulsa Public Schools Teacher of the Year for 2022. So that put her in the running for the 2023 State Teacher of the Year. So we don't have that information yet. I think that comes out in March. But I'm going to tell you, in my heart and in my mind, she is already Teacher of the Year in the state of Oklahoma, in the nation. I mean, she's absolutely one of the incredible teachers out there. So learn a little bit more about Miss Manuel, why she went into teaching, because we know it's low pay, her interesting path in getting into teaching, and then kind of her focus now that she has. You will hear all of that in this episode, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, today I get to talk to Miss Manuel, as I know her. Miss Manuel, welcome.
Excited to be here.
Good. It's interesting, and I say I know you as Miss Manuel, but my son got to have you at Carver Middle School, so he actually was in the classroom with you and benefited from your teaching and your learning environment, which was incredible. And so today I'm talking to you because you are one of the teachers who has been nominated for the 2023 Oklahoma Teacher of the Year. I hope I said all that. That's a mouthful.
You did.
And so if you could start out just kind of telling people a little bit about your inspiration for becoming a teacher, because I love that story.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Morris, I would say in formal setting, but Nancy, for having me here with you today on your podcast.
Yes.
I'm honored just to be in your midst, but also to know the Tulsa Kids connection. I've always been an avid reader of Tulsa Kids, and it helps me out a lot with my own family, and then just finding educational opportunities to share with my students. So I want to thank you and those that are with the Tulsa Kids magazine for this honor.
Absolutely.
As far as just an inspiration of what inspired me to teach, my grandmother, Lucille Holly, was a longtime educator for Tulsa Public Schools for over 40 years. And she oftentimes would take her experience as a teacher and make that an everyday thing for her. So we didn't get the nice, cozy grandma who cooks soup and who has warm blankets and things for you. We got the very stern, fiery, educated woman who wanted to make sure that her family received opportunities that maybe she and others didn't receive. So we would oftentimes be sitting at my grandmother's home and just having ordinary conversations. And I could say, oh, where is that at? And she would go, excuse me, behind that prepositional phrase that you just used. And I'm going, what? Grandma, I just said, where's that at? And she's like, no, again, behind that, what you just said. And I said, at? And she goes, yes, that's a preposition. So I want you to look up the word at. I want you to find it here in my English textbook. And she would go on and have us to sit and find out how to say things without ending them wrong. So at a very early age, I learned how to make sure that my grammar and pronunciation and things always match. Subject and verb was really huge within my family. And so those gave me tough times, and I thought, man, does grandma really love us? But ultimately, I found out that she loved me, and so did all of the teachers within my village love me, because they were very hard on me. I didn't know that that would prepare me for the teacher that I am today. And so with that being said, it was those in my village, from my grandmother to people like Mrs. Ava Fisher, who was at Booker T long time, Janice Bayouth, Janet Thomas, Debbie Givens, who were my instructors at Carver, Lynn Stockley, Mary Howe, Miss Joe Bright. And I'll mention Miss Joe Bright because she was a mentor of mine. And while being a student in high school at Booker T, I went through the magnet track programs, and many people thought, this young lady is going to go places. She has a lot of confidence. She's a leader. But what they didn't know is that I was lacking some academic skills that I was always getting help on. And I didn't know that I would run into an advisor at one point that would tell me, you know what, maybe college is not for you. Maybe these opportunities are not. And it came to just a big, a crashing halt, if I could say, because it was damaging for me to hear those words when I knew that the next step was college. But she basically told me, nope, you need to try something else. And so as educators, I have always learned that we have to be careful for what we say, even if what is there on paper, the data shows something different. We have to probably find a very motivating way to encourage students. And so from there, Joe Bright, who was the director at the North Mabee Boys and Girls Club, had a weekly talk with me, and she said, Traci, I know what news that you got. And I was crying. And she said, once you're done, you're going to pick yourself up and you're going to realize one person doesn't determine your future. And what you're going to do is you're going to go and you're going to attend these classes, you're going to do these next steps, and you're going to make sure you're giving service back to youth while going through getting yourself better. So I did that day to day with her. And ultimately, after that process, within, a couple of weeks, maybe even in months, I was able to get the honor of speaking at the governor's mansion for a scholarship and for other things there. And it was really motivating because this little girl didn't have the confidence to do that, and she was told she couldn't do that. And so from there, I realized, after matriculating through undergrad, graduate school, running into some TPS educators while I was living in Michigan at a conference, and they said, we need you back home. And I thought, no, they don't need me back home. It's fine. And no, we need you to come back home. And so I had that perplexing thought. Things began to happen in my family, deaths and things of that sort. My husband said, sure, we can go back home. And I went into the school system because I still had that in the back of my mind, that I never wanted a student again to experience what I had experienced so late in the journey. But I wanted to make sure that I not only give students the voice, but give them the skills to know that all of them are brilliant. We just have to find a way to unlock it. Mm-hmm. So that's what inspired me to teach, right?
I love it. I have goosebumps. I love it. So, okay, let's talk about the importance of words. Here you are, an English teacher,
yes,
and you hear those words, though, that you're not either cut out for college or that's not your path. But fortunately, you had another person that really said, yes, if you work hard, you can do that. And so the importance of what you say, I'm glad that you hit on that, because the importance of believing in kids and then what you say, because they take that to heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do.
Yes. So if you could kind of talk to us about your journey into education. You kind of even mentioned your master's, but you didn't go into your major in education. And so if you could kind of talk to us about what you majored in and then a little of your path on how you got into teaching.
Sure. Well, I had a unique and unconventional way of getting into teaching. Yes, I was around it all of my life, but in undergrad, I went to Philander Smith College, which is a private school in Little Rock, Arkansas. I wanted to go to school and major in theater. And I knew that institution didn't have it, and I was going to connect with another institution that we partnered with to do that. And my parents told me probably sophomore year, right before I declared my major, hey, Traci, that's a wonderful thing that you want to do. However, we are not going to help pay for a starving artist. You need to have a serious career here. And so that kind of crushed me, but I jumped right up because I knew that wasn't the end. And so I said, well, what can I do to really still fulfill that particular dream, but yet be helpful and have a real career? And so teaching came to mind, but I just at that point still had a little fear and didn't want to do it. So the next best thing was English Lit. I could make the literature come to life, and I knew ultimately if I need to fall back on teaching, I would. So I majored in English literature, which obviously encompasses all of the time periods from Romantic Lit until American Lit, you name it. So I majored in that, and then after undergrad, I was in the Ronald McNair Scholars Program my senior year at Philander, and there was a partnership between that school and the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. And so I did a lot of work preparing me for a PhD, actually. And I had to do a big dissertation, if you may. It's really a thesis project teaching you early post research. And so at that time, I wanted to do arts infused into literacy. And so what that would look like to help kids to be able to bring up their reading ability, but going through the arts to do that. And so my research was on that. So I got a full ride to Eastern Michigan University, where I was doing my master's work. And I received the opportunity of studying with Dr. Deborah Harmon, who was an expert in gifted and talented educations and also looking at minority in education. And so her research at the time, she was partnering with Ann Arbor Public Schools, which is adjacent from the University of Michigan. And she wanted to look at the achievement gap. I had no idea what I was stepping into. The achievement gap was the largest there within the state there in the Ann Arbor School District. And what's so unique is because you have University of Michigan, which is a premier institution where everyone talks about, and they are very well known for their research and people that they have produced out of that institution. And just directly across the street, less than a mile from them, you have the highest achievement gap. And so it was a disconnect there. And so it makes me think figuratively of where tracks are, the good side, the bad side. And so I had no idea at that time that Tulsa was also starting to struggle and have emphasis on, a large achievement gap within our district. And so from there, after majoring in that, doing the work there with from superintendent to their teachers, just training them on how to make sure that they can close the achievement gap. And doing that study just kind of propelled me more into become interested in knowing like, hey, I see myself in that study as a student of where I struggled and how there was a gap there, and man, how that gap probably could have been closed. And my parents were afforded opportunities where I went to the University of Tulsa's reading program and other things like that, where other kids, may not have the same opportunity. However, after finishing there, I still had a desire to kind of continue on in higher education and try to figure out still of infusing the arts. But I still had this tugging at my heart of saying, you're not where you want to be and where you're supposed to be. And so when I came back home, I went into it. I hope I'm staying on the question, the topic. I got the opportunity of Millard House, who is now superintendent in Houston Public Schools, is a family friend, and he offered me the opportunity at that time to come to KIPP, which was a public school at that time, and to do a long-term sub position. And so I went from undergrad to full-time graduate student to being a long-term sub to a teacher's assistant in the district of Tulsa Public Schools. And might I add, I subbed for like a month in Tulsa Public right out of undergrad. And then after the TA-ship, parent facilitator. And then finally, after my son came, who was born 3 months early, I went into teaching that year. And my first job was at Central High School, and really it was Central Junior and Senior High School. It was when Tulsa Public Schools decided to close a lot of the schools due to some financial things. I think Project Schoolhouse. And so I had the opportunity of starting at Central within the school district. And I have gone from Central to Carver and now to Booker T. So what a journey.
Okay. Yeah. It's always interesting though to find out, what your inspirations are and then what motivates you and your journey, because you do not have just the typical majoring in education, student teaching, and then getting a job. It's,
Well, I do value that. I definitely do. It's just not my story. And I think it has given me a different insight into teaching, where I'm seeing a lot more angles than just the curriculum itself. But because of the parent facilitating, because of the teacher assistantship, because of having a child with special needs and all of those different components, and having a little bit more probably life experience than those who might go into it right after undergrad. I think that I bring that to the table with the curriculum as well. So it's a unique opportunity that I wouldn't trade for a lifetime. I often say, man, I should have done it, to begin with. But I'm very thankful for the journey that I took, because I think that it helps in the classroom today.
Well, and part of your journey, you mentioned your child with special needs.
Yes.
So how has that helped you as far as teaching and being in the classroom? Because that's a lot to juggle.
Wow, that's a loaded question. When I think about that one, my child having special needs, one, I would say it's definitely a preparation for me as a teacher. Prior to having children, sometimes as teachers, we are not as sensitive to the needs of all of our students, because we don't know what that feels like for parents, right? We don't know what that feels like for students. But when you have your own and you're faced with this same problem day to day, it's easier. It doesn't make it something that is not challenging, but it becomes a little bit more easier, and it allows you to be more alert when you're planning your units and your lesson to make sure, am I really inclusive? We say that as educators all the time. Yes, I'm inclusive of all learners. Well, how so? So what methods are you actually using? But it makes me really dig deep and try to figure out, how am I differentiating this for every student in the classroom to say that no child is left behind? We know it was an act passed in policy years back, but are we really still fulfilling that goal of leaving no child behind? So my son, who would be considered other health impairment when you look at the terms on an IEP. That's what it would be called, developmentally delayed process. Being born 3 months early, having no idea that we were going to go through this. It was just a fluke, and I had gone to the doctor 2 days before, and then he comes 2 days after, and they didn't expect to see me for another month or so for a checkup. And there was not much that they could do about it. But when he was born, having to live in St. Francis, they had just added the children's wing there, and living in the NICU for 3 months. They told me I was insane, that, I was going to be going through post-traumatic stress and all of these various things that research told me, and that the doctors always said, I really think you should go home. But I didn't want to go home. I stayed right there by his side, reading and making sure things were going great. And so how that impacts my teaching, again, is that I'm always making sure that I am inclusive. And when I have that student that other students may not even understand, I try to definitely not make that student feel like an outsider because they process differently, or that they may be slightly different in other ways. We want to make sure that we're embracive of them in the classroom and give them a voice as well. So it helps me in planning. It also helps me in making sure that they are having a voice, and it makes me know that no child is left behind, and that all are learning.
You have such good perspective, from your life experiences and then also your son. But teaching it's great, but it's not always easy. And so if you could kind of share some helpful tips or suggestions on the days that is hard for you, how do you get through those days?
Well, one, I always try to keep the perspective of what is the purpose here. What purpose am I trying to serve? The purpose is to make sure that these students are not just learning, but that they can be our next leaders for tomorrow. And so we look at day-to-day things that we go through. Students are going to come in with a plethora of things because they're human beings, right? So you don't know if they're going to come in a good mood, in a bad mood. So at the lower levels, elementary and middle school, what I always tell those particular teachers, or even myself, I would do the 5 H's: high five, hug, handshake, hello, in whatever way I wanted them to greet, that they felt comfortable. That let me know how I needed to treat them as they were entering my space, because I don't know what happened to them this morning. Did they get into it with mom or dad, or did things not go well? I started off in a school where many of the students were in the foster care system, so I never knew what happened to them overnight. So this would always give me a sense of how my students are doing, and so I could kind of guide my lessons in that way. So I always say keep the long-term perspective in mind, because short-term we have so many educational crises that we're facing, definitely within the Tulsa Public School Districts, and I think in any urban school district, and really in any school district, you're facing crisis. But if you keep the long-term goal in mind, that your job is to unlock the brilliancy in every child, I think it will help us get through the day-to-day hurdles and not get hung up on those challenges that we face, but realize there's an ultimate goal here that's much bigger than us, and it's the life of the child.
I see why you were nominated. I knew a while back, but I definitely see why you were nominated to be a Teacher of the Year. In my eyes, you already are and were and have been. But I love what you're saying. So if you could give advice to somebody who's thinking about a career in teaching, and again, we talked about it, you're not doing it for the pay. So
Absolutely
if you
not.
could kind of share maybe your advice for somebody thinking about it, then that would be great.
It brings joy to my heart and really brings tears to my eyes to know that we still have those who want to go into education. And I think that there should be a push for those going into education. One of my platforms at the state level is to push excellency back into Oklahoma schools. I believe we have it right there at our fingertips, and so many times we are searching for outsiders to come in and kind of give us the answers. Maybe they're experts in research, but you have experts right there with your teachers and principals and superintendents right there at your fingertips. And so those who are going into education, I always say, definitely keep this in mind. Make sure that you have a desire, discipline, and dedication to this. This is one of the most rewarding professions for anyone to be able to go into when it comes to K through 12 education. Yes, it may have its challenges, but again, the end goal there is not to look at it from a challenging perspective of money not being there in the pay for teachers. When we talk about maybe they're not as respected anymore in the profession, maybe public education in a way is challenged and always has been with privatization and charter schools emerging and growing as well. I think we still have to keep at the forefront of our mind that public education is the heart of this country, and that we need great educators who are going to come in and who are going to stick to the cause and realize that this is not just a job, but this is a calling, and it is our job to make sure that we are equipping students to not only be able to go to college or to be able to get a trade or whatever their particular desire is, but it is to make sure that we have leaders who are going to be able to lead our country in effective ways and really stand for public education, and have those legislators, John Waldron, and so many others who are coming from the classroom and making a difference. I think that, again, if you want to go into education, there are so many opportunities out there for you, and I say it is the most rewarding, and you need to go for it. So let's go, Oklahoma, and let's get these teachers going.
I love it. I've had goosebumps throughout this interview just listening to you, and I can tell you light up a room, but just I feel like just your energy and excitement for teaching and what you're doing is so contagious. It's just incredible. So, yes. So when you were nominated for Oklahoma Teacher of the Year, can you tell me about that process and then what you've been doing since that nomination? Because I guess they announced in March, is that right?
Yes.
So you've kind of been on a track, so if you could share that.
Yes. Well, after teachers have received their District Teacher of the Year, or they just apply to the Oklahoma level, because you don't actually anymore have to be a District Teacher of the Year. You could just be a local teacher and you want to apply. And they choose the top 12 from the various areas within Oklahoma. And from there, it's almost a year-long process, and we were chosen and announced to the public. And after that, we get the opportunity of having a state crew come in, about 2 or 3 people come into your classroom, and they do footage on your classroom. They interview you. They also interview 2 people that you choose. It could be a former supervisor, student, anyone, parent that has made a difference and can speak, those highlighted points about you. So we do that particular one within the first first semester or before December. And then I speak in semester terms, so forgive me as an educator. But then in the month of January, pretty much the spring semester, we go down to the Capitol. We participate sometimes on the superintendent's cabinet. Of course, this superintendent will decide what they want to do because we have a new state superintendent on how they're going to use the 12 of us prior to the number one being selected in March. And through that spring semester, we are there. We do, as I said, various committees that we may sit on. We are also interviewed 2 times at the state level. We participate in a big dinner, and they have some professional development and things along the way. So yes, it is a tedious process, but I say every teacher needs to do it because we need to see the bigger picture here. We don't want to always stay in a very small lens of looking at just our classroom, but how can we better ourselves as professionals to be able to help our districts, which will then help our students. And so it's a long process, but being selected as the Oklahoma Teacher of the Year is an honor. I never thought that I would be selected on any level because I just did my job. That's all I knew to do. And so the kids always say, Miss Manuel, do you ever go home? Do you sleep? Like, we get grades at 5 a.m, or we know you've been up to the school at 1 and 2 a.m. Like, what's going on? All I know is to get the job done, and whatever it takes, we have to be willing to do that. So it's an honor to be selected on the state level with top people at their various district levels, and to know that it's not a competitive process when you get in there amongst the 12, because we have a GroupMe page. We're always talking and encouraging each other and saying different motivational things. So it becomes like a family. So what started off as just, hey, this person may be from Jinx, this person may be from Berry Hill, or wherever they're from, it ultimately ends as a strong family that you don't forget. And all of the past teachers of the years for the state of Oklahoma end up telling us that. So I'm excited about this journey and what it has to offer. So if I am selected as State Teacher of the Year, that is awesome. I would have the opportunity of going around and speaking as the state level would have me. I would be out of the classroom for a year, which is oftentimes sad for us, but it gives us the opportunity of growing in different areas to be able to come back and impact our school and our district. If not selected as Teacher of the Year, it has given me the opportunity of looking at educational challenges that we have. It's given me the opportunity to write outside of just writing curriculum and putting things on paper and giving a different perspective. It gives me the opportunity of meeting with ordinary people and unique people like yourself in the community and getting the word out about education. So I'm just excited to be on the journey. And I'm honored.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you plan to celebrate everyday teachers in the classroom?
Yes.
And encourage novice teachers around the city of Tulsa. So if you could kind of talk about that, because I'm going to include your email that you have said I could share. And so I'll include that. If you could kind of talk more about that so people know what that encompasses and why they should reach out to you.
Well, awesome. So I am in the works of planning. I've been working with some retired teachers as well as some community members in Tulsa Public Schools. Outside of the title itself and selecting a new Teacher of the Year, there hasn't been much in years for the Tulsa Public Schools teacher to actually do. But for me, I just couldn't sit still. So
I know.
I have to begin to get that out so that more teachers will want this opportunity and they can see that Tulsa still is a great place for our students to be educated in. And so on next semester, I'm going to have the opportunity, I'm still looking for sponsorships, to do a 4-part monthly series, one of them starting off with the respect. So New Year goals and respect. And so in January, I'm planning on meeting with teachers, inviting them, and that's from the Tulsa Public Schools area, inviting them out to participate in a luncheon where it would be free, that they would receive a lot of pampering and things of that sort, but that they can also know that there are various people in the Tulsa community that still respect public school educators. So I'm going to be pulling on a lot of people to come in and to help with that particular adventure. In the month of February of showing love, there's an initiative for each month and a theme of things that we're going to do. So we'll do do something in February with love, then I'll do something in March with the whole college week, because we know that that's March Madness. And so a competition with senior teachers or veteran teachers and novice teachers there, but partnering them together, because so many of the times as veteran teachers, we will forget about the novice teachers. And so many times the novice teachers receive so much training, but they don't have all the application. And so partnering those two areas again and making sure that our entire, hopefully, school district will be on board with that. So I'm excited about that. I still have to sit down and talk with Dr. Gist and all of the higher up to make sure that they would be in support of that. But this is just an individual effort that I'm doing on my own. And ultimately, I would like to, in the month of April, have those teachers to go out to Camp Lockridge or Post Oak, and we do an overnight retreat to be able to do some team building there that would let them know that even though you go through the trenches, there's always a greater outcome here. And it's about the students, but it's also making sure your mental health is intact to be able to help them through these trenches. So I have some great things in store, looking for sponsorships, still going to meet with our superintendent and others in Tulsa Public Schools. And I'm hoping that this will become a trend for the next person who takes my place as the Tulsa Public Schools Teacher of the Year.
Awesome. Yeah, you're starting something really great that's going to impact a lot of people. And so anyway, yeah, I can't wait to see more about that. So I'm going to wrap up with asking you to share your favorite quote and then why it's a favorite for you.
Wow. There are so many to choose from.
Yeah.
Quotes. Well, one that sticks out to mind that I say is my all-time favorite is one by a great historian, Frederick Douglass, which, if there is no struggle, then how can we have progress? Right? So I look at that particular quote and I say how it is very symbolic of my own life and so many of the lives of the students that I have had, and being able to teach in sometimes in Title I schools, lower performing schools, all the way to magnet schools. You still see that everyone needs encouragement, no matter where they are on this academic level. They still need encouragement. And I think when Frederick Douglass said that, if I could put that in my own words, he's saying that we are going to have to endure some hard times and some hardships, but it's not about what we're enduring. It's the process that we're going through and how well we can deal with the process to be able to come out as gold on the other side. And so I want to be able to tell students that this learning process, K through 12, may seem like it is an unending process when you're in it, but you'll look back and it'll go by so fast. But what did you embrace about the progress? What did you embrace about the struggle? Did you grapple with this thing, and what did you ultimately learn? And what you learn is not just for you, but it is to come back and share with others. So whether you become an educator or whether you become a great citizen of this community or another community, it is our job to give back to those who have given to us. So as I say to my students, I used to say at Carver, and many of my students would always know this, I got this from a great teacher who has gone on, Juanita Williams, and she was an expert in Shakespeare. So I would end class by saying, parting is such sweet, sweet sorrow. Have a great day. In Tulsa, I'll see you tomorrow.
I love it. Okay, what a great way to end. I appreciate your time today, Traci Manuel, and it was so fun catching up, and good luck with the Teacher of the Year coming up. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for having me.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.